Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here, sharing the work of Katarina. Katarina is going to talk us about the unfortunately hot topic nowadays. It's a social problem. It's about disinformation and conspiracies in the network. So the things that she's going to tell us probably are quite interesting, even for those that are not directly related with this topic as me. Katarina is working, is a PhD student in CiTIUS. His supervisor is Marcos Garcia, and I'll let you talk about your work. You can start when you want.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm Katarina, and I will tell you about my research. I'm a PhD student in the Hybrids network. So yes, we are part of a bigger network that talks about misinformation, hate speech, and other types of unwanted content online. So this is the title of my presentation, and I'm supervised by Sara Tonelli, who is not here because she's in Trento, and Marcos, who is here. Okay, so the base idea of my project is kind of to look at the overlap and the relationship between hate speech and misinformation in an automatized way, and to use them for the detection of each other, basically. And from the social science literature, we know that these are very related topics. Hate speech and misinformation, they often go together. They kind of tend to elicit strong emotional reactions, for example. Misinformation often is used to spread hate against certain social groups, etc. So from the kind of social literature, we know that these are related topics. However, on a computational level, this detection of these things are often done in isolation because it's very task-based. So, for example, people look at specific tasks like fact-checking or fake news classification or hate speech detection. There's other constructs like dehumanization that people look at. But these tend to be, of course, formulated as very specific tasks because it's a kind of computer science thing, so you need to have a clear kind of goal and something to measure. And the goal of this project is to look at them in combination and to see how they are related. So conspiracy theories, they are kind of the love baby of these two things because very many of them, they are very hateful and also very, very false. And actually believing conspiracy theories, it's very common all over the political spectrum. We tend to associate it with this kind of big extremism, but actually a lot of people, even not very extremist ones, believe in some conspiracy theories. But of course, not everybody is very deep in the rabbit hole, and there is kind of different levels. And what I look at specifically, it's conspiracism, which is this kind of way of seeing the world where you believe that there is this big group, or a small group actually, of people that has a lot of power, that is kind of evolved in everything that goes wrong in the world and all the evil, and yeah, that they are behind everything. So I think this meme that my friend made for me for this presentation, I think it's nice because it shows kind of these levels of conspiracies, right? So the first JFK Jr. died. Okay, I think this is already quite niche, but it's something that maybe a reasonable person maybe could believe in, and then it gets stranger and stranger and stranger. Yeah, and in the end, if you're very deep in this whole, everything is really connected to everything. So these kind of conspiracy worldviews and these narratives, they have a specific type of structure. So one interesting thing about them is that they are very capable to incorporate new information. So whatever happens, it can always become a part of the conspiracy. So if something happens, I don't know, an earthquake, a war, something else, there is always a way to tie this back to this group of evil people. And this also brings to the second point, that it's more about who does it than about what is actually happening. So, for example, when there was the earthquake in Turkey some years ago, the conspiracy people, they started to say, oh, it's because the USA, they put the geoengineering and the HARP systems there to cause this earthquake, because Turkey doesn't want to, I believe, something to give access to the sea around them for American warships, something like this. So it's more about who is behind it than about what is actually happening. What is happening, it is instrumental. And because of this, it's also often said that these kind of conspiracy theories, they combine many different domains of knowledge. So usually in the real world, in newspapers, in scientific literature, in, let's say, mainstream narratives, we see that, for example, people, they belong to a specific domain and events belong to a domain. So if there's an earthquake, I mean, of course, there will be some kind of political response because you need to coordinate the actions, but generally you will talk about moving plates of the earth or something like this. But for conspiracy theories, it's not really like this, because everything is in the same domain, which is the conspiracy domain. So for them, it does not exist a guy that's just working at a bank somewhere doing his job. No, he is there in the big conspiracy, and he is connected to the earthquakes, to the COVID, to the war, to whatever is there. And because of this, it gives a kind of simplistic and flattened way to show us the reality. Now, online, of course, there is a specific thing going on, because social media, the way it works, as we all know, I think, it favors content that is interesting and engaging. So it's not that it necessarily wants fake news to spread or something like this, but if something makes people click on it, then it will usually spread faster. So unfortunately, very bad content is very entertaining very often. So stuff like hate or conspiracy theories, clickbait, just kind of negative emotions are often found to be associated with this kind of spread and social media going viral. And I don't, like, it's not really in the scope of my project to say, like, oh, because of social media, people believe more in conspiracies. I don't know if it's like this, maybe, maybe no, I don't know. But anyway, according to some people, namely Pilati and Rosenblum and Morit, this favors a kind of conspiracism that's a bit different than before. So before, maybe it was based more on these kind of more elaborate theories where people try to explain, like, no, look, the earth is flat because it's like this, like that. And now it's more emotion based. So it's lots of memes, it's maybe less coherent, lots of personal attacks, and very strong emotions present in this kind of online conspiracism. Okay, so if we go back a bit to the narrative structure and also what we saw about these emotions, would it be, what we were wondering is, would it be possible to measure this? And if so, how can we quantify this? Because these are all, I would say, quite abstract things. And it's good, what we wanted to do is to think, okay, how can we put this into some kind of variable or something that we can measure and something that we can then maybe quantify and say something about it in the context of social media content, and do this automatically and also for more than just one language. Okay, so to look a bit about what kind of topics are there in the data that we have in the Conspiracism Online, this is just to kind of overview this thing. It's called the Georgia Guidestones. There's a lot of conspiracy theories about this. It's a kind of art monument thing. Yeah, but these are the kind of topics we see. They are quite different. And this also brings us, for example, to the topic, okay, what do we compare it to? Like, what kind of mainstream data? Because if you measure something and you cannot compare it to anything, then what are you saying, actually? I don't know. Yeah, so this is the kind of thing that they talk about. Okay, so based on kind of all of this before, we made a data set which consists of the data from 300 Telegram channels that we got both from TG dataset, which is a kind of Telegram dump that is available online, and also through the official Telegram API we use to get more data from it. Out of these 150 are conspiracy and 150 are mainstream, and it's in English and in Italian. Okay, so exactly like I said, before we saw these topics, yeah, so this is the kind of topic, so what kind of mainstream channel should we look at? So this is kind of the categories that I came up with. I think none of these is exactly comparable to every conspiracist channel. I think the politics commentary is kind of the closest, but yeah, it's difficult to see what exactly you should compare it to, and this is the choice we made because it talks about similar topics, but of course there are also differences in style and etc. Okay, so one of the things we did to see how these narratives are created in these Telegram channels is that we made an entity graph, which is just like a network with the entities that appear in these channels. First step, of course, was to find the entities and to put them together. So, for example, if it says Donald Trump or Trump, we want this to be the same entity. We want the system to put them in the same node. So we did a named entity recognition. We just used an off-the-shelf tool, and then we post-processed the output of that. And then we did some entity linking using Wikidata and back translation. This is quite difficult to tweak well because, I mean, especially the entity linking is difficult, but also the entity recognition. For example, we found that persons and locations are generally recognized quite well, but then there is a miscellaneous category where sometimes completely random things end up. So yeah, we had to put some post-processing steps there. With some preliminary manual evaluation, it's around 80% accurate, but also how to exactly measure this accuracy, it's not super obvious, but I would say that for the intents and purposes, I think this is a good result also compared to other types of this kind of task. Okay, so who are these entities? People, places, organizations, miscellaneous. So overlap, these are entities, these are just some examples, of course there's many more, that appear both in mainstream and in conspiracy channels. I think this is stuff that everybody would expect, like Trump, Pfizer, Russia, of course, everybody talks about these kind of important players that do things in the world. Then the conspiracies, they talk more about entities like this, like Soros, Gates, the Mossad, like they are very present. I think also, I mean, there is a lot of anti-Semitism generally there. And of course, I have to say that also mainstream channels, they talk about this, of course. I mean, Soros and Gates and the Mossad, they're all real entities. They exist, they do things. But they are much less common in mainstream channels. So then what we did, we made a big graph of these entities. So one graph represents the entities in one channel, because we want to see for each channel how do they kind of combine the different entities and how do they co-occur. Sorry. So the nodes are the entities and the edges are the co-occurrences. And this gives a graph that kind of shows, for example, which entities appears together. And to kind of give you the intuition behind this, for example, a mainstream graph, we don't expect many entities to co-occur if they are not explicitly related. For example, I don't know, let's say something, Pfizer and earthquakes, well, earthquake would not be an entity, like Pfizer and some city in Turkey where there was the earthquake, for example, we would not expect them to co-occur so often because actually they are not super related entities. Of course it can happen sometimes, but you would not really expect it. Whereas for the conspiracy graphs, we would expect entities that are maybe not so obviously related to co-occur more often, and there to be more unexpected maybe relationships and also just more relationships. So we wanted to see what is the difference between this kind of graphs for the different types of channels. So what are the characteristics? Interestingly, I think it's interesting, the conspiracies channels, they are more dense and more transitive. Transitive, it measures the amount of triangles in the network, which means basically something like, okay, if there is a relationship between A and B and C, what is the chance that there is a relationship between A and C? Now that they are more dense and transitive, this can be the artifact of many different characteristics of the graph, because network science is quite a complex thing. But what I think is important to say is that the conspiracies channels have more unique entities, so they have more nodes, and yet they are more dense. This is quite interesting because generally, like density, like the more nodes a graph has, the less dense it tends to be, of course. Dense, it just means that there is lots of edges compared to the amount of nodes in the graph. This is important to say. So also the weighted density, so the amount of times that entities co-occur is the same, and the fact that the weighted density is the same but the general density is different, it says that the entities in the conspiracy graphs, they co-occur with more different entities rather than all the time with the same. And also the average clustering coefficient is the same, and the average clustering coefficient, ACC, is a measure to say for each node kind of how related are its neighbors. And the difference is that transitivity, it puts more weight because of the way it's calculated on this kind of high degree vertices, nodes. Whereas average clustering coefficient, it more gives a kind of metric that more evenly weights the whole graph. So this means that probably for the conspiracy graphs, there are some high degree nodes that are very, very connected, which would coincide, or which would could fit well with our idea that the conspiracy graphs that the conspiracy theories have this small group of entities that is really connected to everything and that is there in every kind of context. So we think that all of this together means that the conspiracy narrative pushes all the entities kind of in one domain and they all connect them to each other. Also, conspiracy networks are less degree disassociative. I thought a lot about what this means. I think this, I know what it means in terms of network science, but more like what it means in terms of narrative structure. They're both disassociative by degree. I don't know if anybody is even following this, but I will just tell you now that it means disassociative. It means that nodes from different degrees, they tend to be more together instead of nodes with the same degree clustering together. I think this might be an artifact of the density, but I'm not sure, and this is very difficult to interpret, so this is for future work, but I think it might be worth looking into this. Okay, then something maybe with more light. We looked at also the emotions that we find. We used in the different types of channels, and we used a different kind, just off-the-shelf tool. For each post, we could find different emotions. We split it in sentences, and then we looked per sentence, what is the top scoring emotion if it has a confidence score of at least 0.5. And then we counted the set of unique emotions for each post. So we expected that there would be more negative emotions in the conspiracy content. And this was not exactly true, kind of. So there's definitely more anger. This means that it's significant at the 0.001 level. So this is a very clear difference. Also, you see a very big difference here. This is one with new test. But the other ones, much less. So for example, they were a little bit more sad. This is significant at the 0.5 level, the 0.05 level. They were a bit more sad, but the mainstream channels, they had more fear. This is over all channels, but when we split it out, we found that this is mainly the case for news-related channels. And for the joy, there is no difference. So, no significant difference. So yeah, this is maybe a bit of a mixed thing, although I think the anger, this is something that is also found in the literature, that it's very common for this kind of more extremist and conspiracist content. So then what we did, we went back to the entity graph, and we found the most central group of entities using the average degree centrality of the groups. And what we found, so then what we looked at, basically for each post in a channel that has one of these entities, what is the emotionality? And then we compared the emotionality of these top groups with the emotions of this same channel as a whole. So we see, okay, if the post mentions one of these entities that are most central in the entity graph, does it also mean that they are, like that there is a different emotion associated with these kind of entities compared to the rest of the channel? So this is for the conspiracy, and for the conspiracy, yes, there is a difference. This is significant, so you see the confidence interval does not cross the 0. So for joy and sadness, we did not see this difference. But these top entities, they are significantly more associated with anger and fear compared to other posts in these same channels. So this again comes back to our idea that this kind of group, this central group of entities, is this evil group that is behind everything and connected to everything, etc. And for the mainstream channels, we did not find this effect. So here, it's basically the same. The entities that are most central for the mainstream channels, they are not associated with different kind of emotions than the other posts in the channel. Then there was another thing that other literature said, and this is that entities stitch together topics. This is found in the literature. We found this in preliminary experiments. However, when we looked at this bigger sample of 300 channels, we did not clearly find this effect. So basically what we did, we looked at the topics that occur in the different posts, and then we see, okay, all the posts in topic A and all the posts in topic B. We see which entities appear and what is their frequency, and then we correlate these frequencies. So if entity appears a lot in topic A, how connected is this to the chance that they also appear in topic B? Which we would expect for conspiracy theories is more, because they put all the entities in the same topics. So we did this with some correlation matrix, and then I did some Bayesian statistics that I really don't want to put in this PowerPoint. But anyway, we did not replicate it, so it's not there. Why? I have some ideas. I think the way we found topics was quite simple. So there are very interesting, good topic models like bird topic, etc. But it did not work very well for our data. We did not manage to make this work. Maybe if there's time, I can talk about it later. I don't know how much time I have actually. Yeah, not so much. So, okay. And also, I think many of the conspiracy channels, they were relatively monothematic, especially in Italian. They talked mainly about COVID. So I think this could be, this could be some reasons, and this is something to look into more in the future, why we were not able to find this effect. Or maybe this is something about Telegram or something else, but this is something to look into more. Okay, so the conclusion. We looked for a way to quantify whether conspiracist narratives connect all entities more to each other compared to mainstream channels. And we found this way. We saw in the graph that this tends to be the case for conspiracy channels, and that this narrative carries a lot of anger, especially for the most central entities, which we think is this group. And I mean, this is also what we saw, like when we looked at the entities, this is like Moderna and Trump and all this kind of important entities, and that we saw that for the conspiracy channels are more associated with anger and fear, and for mainstream channels is the same as the rest of the channel. So the future directions, there's really a lot I think to do here. So for example, we did not manage to make the bird topic work very well, but maybe there's other ways to try it, to do more. I don't know. Other ways also to export entities over the domains. We have these Wikidata API, for example, so this can be used. And then later also it would be interesting to look at more complicated steps like narrative detection or like extraction or role detection. So for example, if you have a post, can we automatically identify who is like the villain in this post or something like this? Okay, then I want to talk a bit about some other data sets that we are doing. This is a never-ending project that hopefully now someday will be finished. But this is a multilingual Telegram data set that we annotate manually in the post level in 5 languages. We annotate it for these things. I don't think I have time to talk about this, so I will not do it, but you can ask me. This is some other projects that I was doing that are also, yeah, if you have a question about this, you can ask me later. This is a list of publications and reports. And thank you so much for your attention, and let me know if you have ideas.
Thank you, Katarina, for your nice presentation. Now we have time for some comments or questions. Does anybody want to ask something? Pablo?
Thank you, Katarina, for your nice presentation too. Yeah, just I want one question and also just a curiosity. The question is about the graph. How do you build this graph? Because I see that you use name entity recognition, entity linking to identify the nodes, so the entities, and the relationships between them.
They're just co-occurrences.
Just co-occurrences. So you don't use any kind of semantic relation?
No.
Okay, and are you going to do that, or it's?
I mean, I think this would be interesting to do, for example, some kind of role detection or something like this. But a problem with this, so what I mainly wanted to do here, so I calculated all of these metrics. When you also add edge attributes, this becomes also a very kind of different story. Yeah, I think this would be interesting. Also, there has been earlier work on this. Yeah, I think this would be interesting, but we did not look at it so far. Also to do this again, because already I feel like this kind of graph, it has a lot of moving parts and it's not a super easy thing to convince people that it's a good idea to do it. So I think to introduce this, it adds like a new level of complexity, and also it changes a lot the let's say calculations of the metrics that you can do. Yeah. But yeah, it would be interesting to look at something like this.
Okay, thank you. Just the curiosity is about the topics of conspiracy. The last one, it was something that I couldn't identify, something like geoengineering. Or what was that?
Yeah, it is. They believe that, for example, the climate is engineered, and also a lot about earthquakes being human-induced to put pressure on countries with some geopolitical, things like this.
Thanks, Katarina. About the size of the data, because you refer to 150 conspiracy channels, 150 mainstreams.
Yes.
I don't know if all the channels are with similar size in terms of content of the conversations, or there could be big deviation between ones or the number of entities and so on, because this can have an impact in the graphs.
Yes, we capped them. So we capped them at 2,000, and then there is not a lot, almost all of them at more than 2,000 posts. There were some with less, but this is a marginal number. So we made sure that this is not the influence, and also we repeated the calculations without the graphs with less than 2,000, and it was the same. Yes, but that's a good question actually, yes.
And you are considering just co-occurrence of two entities because they appear in the same channel, but you don't count many times that appear in one or other or something like that? Or?
We count, so each channel is one graph, and we do co-occurrences in the same paragraph. And yes, the edges are weighted, but the density, yes, so we calculated both with and without.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jose Maria. Any other question or comment? Yes, David.
Thank you. About the emotions that you mentioned, I was thinking that this might be strongly topic dependent, right? Because,
Yes.
for instance, if we talk about
Yes.
politics, right, it's quite natural to see high proportion of anger.
Yes.
But you explicitly mentioned, for instance, fear. And I was thinking that perhaps you should go to a topic level analysis because, for instance, fear, it makes sense to see fear, for instance, if we are talking about health topics or things like that. But perhaps people do not feel fear when it's talking about politics because of this polarization. People are always angry about the other party or whatever, right?
Yes, I did look at this actually because this was also my idea, and this is also because a lot of the earlier research that looked at, for example, misinformation and hate speech and things like this, they found exactly like more negative emotions, but I felt like the comparisons they made were not completely fair. Like they compared it to types of data that would also have less negative emotions, right? So because they're, yeah, exactly. This was my idea. So the way, like, to find these emotions over topics, it's not super obvious exactly because of the way the topic model works, that we didn't manage to make the topics align very well between conspiracy, like across conspiracy and mainstream channels. But we looked at different types of channels. And yes, also, for example, the mainstream news channels, they are very much associated with fear. And I think exactly that this is because of this reason. That, for example, they talk a lot about war and health, exactly, and things like this. And I think that this is, especially for fear, one of the main reasons why we find this. Yes, but yeah, this is definitely something to look into more systematically. Yeah.
And another follow-up comment connected to what Jose Maria said before about the size of the data, because we also work with BERT topic quite a lot. And I was thinking that perhaps you don't really have enough data in order to extract useful topics, because I was wondering about the size of the text in these Telegram channels. I mean, I'm not familiar with this corpora, but I was thinking that perhaps you don't really have enough data in order to extract useful topics in an automatic way using BERT topic.
I mean, I don't think this is the case. So I experimented with a lot of different ways to extract them better. I also I made a classifier that would filter out this kind of banner sentences like subscribe to our channel, this is our site, this is, and then use the BERT topic to train on what's left, to filter out stop words, non-content words, things like this. I don't think the amount of, I don't think it's the amount of text. I think it's more maybe the type. I don't know which kind of data you use for the BERT topic. Yeah, but
we mostly use social network data from Reddit and things like that. But Reddit comments,
yes,
they typically have longer text and,
I mean, it depended quite a lot on the channel how long is the text, which is also why we split in paragraphs, because this was a bit more stable. But yeah, it is possible. I think definitely the Telegram data is very noisy, and this throws off a lot the BERT topic, even when deleting the banners. But yeah, for us, so the main problems, there are two of them. One is that the topics don't align well. So, for example, COVID conspiracy and COVID mainstream, they are in different topics, and even in the hierarchy, they are not close, which I think is because of the clustering of BERT topic, which tends to, I think it's too thrown off by the style. And the second problem was that BERT topics tended to throw a lot of topics in the -1 topic, like a lot of posts in the -1 topic, but really like a lot, and then have like two very big topics with almost no content, and lots of rather small topics that were too specific, and that also hierarchically did not cluster well. So yeah, I think this is maybe something in the Telegram data, but we don't. Yeah.
Okay. And just a final question about the profile of the people who is interacting in these Telegram channels, because a couple of weeks ago I was reading a paper on the on trying to understand the profile of the people who really believes in these crazy things, right? and they were analyzing things like the age of the people, the political orientation, and other, geographical factors. And based on that, they predict whether or not they are going to believe one of these things. So have you considered to try to extract, for instance, in automatic way, characteristics of the people who are, interacting in this type of channels?
No. So the channels, they are broadcasting channels, so we only have what the channel itself posts. Some of them they allow, like on Telegram, you can write under a post. But we did not look at this. Like, we only have the post that is sent by the main channel. Most of them, like in their bio, they don't tell a lot about themselves. Some of them do, but many of them are more kind of like public figures, which also, I guess, it's not super representative for the people that necessarily believe in this kind of thing. So yeah, I think that Telegram does not really have this kind of data. I believe the study, is it the one by Gambini that looked at the Twitter characteristics, maybe?
I don't think so, but I can tell you the reference later.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, no, but we did not look at it. I think Telegram does not give the right data. Also, I think it's maybe a bit a different study. I'm not sure how it would work with privacy and things like this. So yeah, we did not look at it.
This was mostly a user study in which they produce fake news and real news, and they have lots of information about the people. And yeah, because this was a user study, they collected people with different political orientation, different age, and things like that, and they presented fake news or real news, and they tried to understand what factors of the news or of the individual do actually influence on whether they finally believe that was true or false, right? So as far as I remember, I don't think they use any data from social networks. But I'll send you the reference later.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I mean, there are also papers that do this, but no, we did not look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David. Any more questions or comments? No? I have a question. It's about the multilingual characteristic of your study. You study 2 languages, as far as I understood, Italian and English, and you, I suppose, are going to study more languages. This study is because you think you will find any relationship or any bias concerning the particular language? Are you going to study that?
I think it would be nice to look into it, but this is, this would be nice. It's difficult, of course, to disentangle the language and the culture and things like this. But yeah, I think this would be interesting. So for now, this had the two languages, also for reasons of availability, because I mean, I speak these languages, so I could annotate myself, and also because this was in the data, so we could find this, while also having substantial, let's say, cultural overlap. But yes, it would be nice to do this in the future. Yes.
Okay, and lastly, I don't know what are the criteria do you follow to select, especially the mainstream data set? Is something mainly randomly, or you have some criteria to choose?
Yeah, so I'm not sure what you mean randomly, but I for each channel I looked at 10 randomly sampled posts, and I tried to see if they mention any kind of conspiracies, also dog whistles or this kind of thing. Yeah, I think I've been looking at this data for 1.5 years now. I mean, maybe I overestimate myself, but I think I can see if... I mean, there were some channels that I was a bit in doubt, and if in doubt, I did not select them. Yes, but I took channels that had... that I did not see any dog whistles or this kind of conspiracist content. Yes, but to select them, it was difficult actually to find them and select them. It was a lot of work.
How many times do you need to annotate all this information?
Actually, the mainstream channels more. I mean, to annotate this whole data set, it was a lot of work. yeah, it was a lot of work. Actually, the Conspiracies channels, most of them are quite fast because most of them are quite on the nose. Yeah, but the mainstream you have to look well because very often it's not so obvious that they are, yeah.
Related to this, have you considered to use LLMs to do automatic annotations? Because now there are a lot of papers doing these things, and in some cases they have quite high accuracy in, you know, predicting the human labels.
Yeah, we did not do this, but for the future it could be, we could explore it. Yeah, it could be interesting. Yeah.
Okay, if there isn't... Oh,
I'm just interested in how you find these Telegram channels in the first place. I don't think there is a list of conspiracy channels on internet.
Yeah, I used the keyword searches, and first, like, I had kind of automatic filters to find the channels, but mainly if they mention QAnon or a couple of just terms like geoengineering, for example, that I know are not really used by mainstream channels. And then out of this, I look which are the channels that they repost from to do a kind of snowball thing. And then you get a very big list of channels. I took posts from those channels, I put them in a spreadsheet, and I go through them. Yes, but the mainstream channels, it was actually more work, and yeah.
Just a follow-up, maybe then is there maybe like an overlap between a scientific channel that talks about geoengineering or COVID or biology and then this conspiracy channel?
What do you mean?
Is there a, can you find a really nice line, or it can be a mix of both scientific and conspiracy members, like being the same channel? How do you then categorize this Telegram channel, for instance?
So I was, yeah, so there were some channels that were a bit like this, and then I just did not include them because, yeah, I mean, generally if in their posts, for example, if a lot of it is normal, but then there are some clearly, like some posts that are clearly conspiracist, then it's conspiracist because they believe in this, and also the other science, it still fits with their worldview, okay? But if it's generally scientific with some dog whistles or some things, I did not include it because, yeah, I think it's too difficult, honestly. Yes.
well, I think that there is no more questions, so we can finish here. Thank you again, Katarina, for your very nice presentation, and thank you everyone for being here with her.